What avoids omens and synchronicities? Hello, everyone. I'm Thomas, and this is my channel. Welcome. I do educational videos on a number of different subjects, mostly the esoteric, occult, hard to understand variety, and mostly not hard to understand in and of themselves, but harder to understand because it requires that we unlearn a lot of things that we thought we knew to be true, and not until we can do that can we really embrace the kind of the beginner's mind that we need to dig into some of these other topics, alternative topics. One of the things that I work on is called Tree of Life, and I'm sure that you've seen this many times before, at least if you watch my show, but also it's an ancient model that has been used by many people throughout the years. Most of them probably are pretty evil, but this is a different interpretation that allows us to use this in order to defend ourselves from these evil people, and even to make offensive moves in the name of what is righteous and good, instead of human sacrifice and all this exploitation. And so if we learn this, we can use it to our advantage. It's just another piece of technology, and what it has talks about really it's a map of our faculties of consciousness. Really, there are 12 here. There are 10 that are numbered as spheres: 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Then there is a thing here called the abyss, and then there is a 0 above the tree. So 12 total faculties of consciousness. Briefly, they are animal consciousness, survival instinct, consciousness of the body, and the fight or flight response. Then we also have the ninth sphere, which is our domestic consciousness, what we have growing up in the early years of our life. We're highly receptive to our caregivers and other influences in our domestic environment, and we watch them, and we memorize what they do, and then we learn to imitate what they do. We practice imitating them until we get it right. Okay, then at the eighth sphere, we have what is called the consensus worldview, or this is our logical faculty and our belief systems. This is where all the institutions and all the establishment is, and they, from their pulpits, tell us what we're supposed to believe, how we're supposed to view the world, what's okay and what's not okay. And to the extent that we believe what they tell us, we have the opportunity to move into the eighth sphere ourselves and become one of these experts. But what we do is we generally establish their belief systems, their beliefs, and we rationalize. A lot of times we see anomalies in the world, things that don't quite make sense with their paradigms, but we rationalize them and call it crazy or conspiracy theorists or theories, or or we just ignore it outright. So we rationalize. It's some, I guess you could call it Stockholm Syndrome. We defend, we learn to believe what they believe, and then we bend over backwards to defend it, because we're invested in it to a certain extent, especially as we move into into the A-sphere and become one of the experts, then we really bend over backwards to rationalize it. And this can be seen very clearly in like the history of science. When you look at the structure of scientific revolutions, where the invested scientist will do really inhumane things in order to avoid the new paradigms from coming out, because it will destroy their academic career and their reputations. So so they will go to the point of actually smearing the other researchers who are coming up with the new paradigms, or just suppressing them. So that's kind of the A-sphere. But people who are in the A-sphere, who recognize that something is wrong, there are certain of those who actually move over here to the 7th sphere. And where the 8th sphere is about the real world, the 7th sphere is about the imaginary world. So they imagine something better, some better way of doing it. And if they work at it, then they eventually can articulate an alternative in the form of an artistic creation or an invention that will improve upon what's going on here. So this is your artists and your inventors, and the qualities involved include imagination, and faculties involved: imagination, intuition, and inspiration. Also our pleasure principle. And this serves as a wedge to get further up the tree, as well to the 6th sphere, which is really where our center is, are the center of the map. And this is where we are located. You are here. And this is our free will faculty, which is our ability to pay attention and to make decisions. And one of those decisions would be, the first decision would be to start paying attention up the tree toward our higher spiritual aspects, because most of the time we pay attention down the tree toward our conditionings, our belief systems, the status quo, what's going on, what's comfortable for us. And we pay attention to that comfortable world instead of turning ourselves around and facing into the kind of the unknown, because these faculties are not well developed. So we don't really have a good roadmap here like we do. We feel like we have something established down here that, something that we can hang our hat on, even though it's very illusory and it's also mostly blind. So we have to summon the courage to kind of step in and face the unknown. Okay, then the 5th sphere basically corresponds to our sense of justice. It's karma. What comes around goes around, and so we are given feedback on our behavior, and the karma judges us according to violence, waste, and violation. So we're able to learn from karma here. If we do something, karma is like a mirror. It's like there's a mirror right here, and we shoot here, and it comes back to us. And we are able to learn, okay, I did that, and it wasn't, I got negative feedback for that. So maybe I can improve my behavior. So that's one way to use the karma. The karma is the enforcement of the natural law. And the natural law is articulated here at the 4th sphere in the form of a cosmology or a theory of everything. One of our ancient holy books articulates the natural law, how things are interrelated, what their form and function is, and how they all fit together in this big symphony that the Chinese call Tao, the Tao. And this is really comes as a result of long hours of investigation, experimentation, experience, and observation on how the world really works. And it's really like the this area, really trumps the A-sphere, where the A-sphere tells you how things really work, but it's really just a decree. They just tell you what you're supposed to believe, and you believe it. Where here they actually it provides proof. It's like, well, if you don't believe what's written in this cosmology, then just observe for yourself, and it should become self-evident. Okay, then we go to the abyss. The abyss has to do with our psychic powers. This boils down to psychic receptivity and psychic heat. So our psychic receptivity is our ability to tune into and recognize omens and synchronicities and things that are uncanny and things that are recurring instances in our lives. When we hear the same word over and over again, or the same number, we see the same numbers. Those are messages that we're getting, that it really boils down to like a magnetic charge. And our ability to be able to receive those charges is our psychic receptivity, and our ability to act upon those is our psychic heat. Okay, then 3, 2, and 1 is our divine aspects within. Omnipotence, all powerful, is 3, which we access through sound synchronization. This is generally about sound, and this is generally about light, our second sphere. So this has to do with omniscience, all-knowing, or wisdom. And we tune into this through our vision by being able to really shut down the talking mind. And then the first sphere has to do with omnipresence, all present, all at once, eternally. So this is really what the physicists might have called the ether back in the day, where it underlies everything. It's at the deepest center of everything. If you penetrate all the way into the deepest center of everything, you get this one, which is the same. Each thing at its deepest center is exactly the same, one. It's a unifying factor. It unifies all of us. It's the spark within us that unifies us. And then the 0 above the tree is really like kind of precedes the whole thing. This is part of the one, but it is the part of the one that is a mystery that we don't have access to. So you can almost even think of it as really like the rules of this is the whole universe, but this is the rules of, this is the kind of the brains behind the operation. Okay, so that is how you parse out the 12 faculties of consciousness. Now, in my model, what I've done is I've taken the whole tree, and which is, describes the 12 faculties of consciousness of anything, and I placed a miniature tree onto each one of the spheres. So that means that I break the 10th sphere down into its 12 component parts, and I break the 9th sphere down into its 12 component parts, and so on, which leads to a total of 144 mini faculties of consciousness, or fractal faculties, what I refer to as the stages of life. Even though those stages are not really chronological, they're dramatic stages. And I have a list of those, an annotated list of those 144 fractal faculties, which I will send you for free if you request it by clicking the link below in the description. And I'd be happy to send that out to you. So today, all these different videos, that list will help you negotiate all these different videos that I'm doing on different stages of life. So the dramatic stages. So each day I'm doing one of the 144. Today we're doing number 90, what avoids omens and synchronicities. So, if you were guessing from just the description that I gave below, I talking about omens and synchronicities, you're thinking that that's part of the abyss, and you would be correct. So that is within the abyss, and it is really the fifth fractal of the abyss. So the fifth sphere has to do with our sense of justice, and so this is within the fifth sphere, and it is the part of this magnetic area here about our psychic powers. And what this really is avoiding omens and synchronicities is really referring to a lack of psychic heat. So you see the omen, but you don't act upon it. And in fact, you avoid it. You move away from the omen. So it's kind of like a denial. The omen is communicating with you, but you're making attempts to hide your face from it so that you don't see it. And this is physically is called diamagnetism. Number 90, diamagnetic. Stage number 90 is about atoms and molecules who tend to align east and west, perpendicular to the magnetic charge, which aligns north and south. Diamagnets also tend to move over to the weaker part of the field. Universal magnetism. All atoms and molecules are magnetic, but most are very weak. Diamagnetism and paramagnetism are two of the four kinds for all elements and molecules. The diamagnet moves toward the weaker part of the field, whereas the paramagnet moves toward the stronger part of the field. The paramagnet is actually, that is actually stage number 91, whereas this is stage number 90, the diamagnet. So the diamagnet is the one that moves away from the magnetic field or the omen. Diamagnetic atoms move toward the weaker part of the field, repelling the charge. So we have what's called negative Wachet. Wachet is the serpent that is one of the two serpents that corresponds to, in the Egyptian, what's called the Urias, or the psychic powers. And that is the caduceus that you see in the medical staff, the two snakes intertwining, and that could also be thought of as DNA. But so you have a red snake, which is Wachet, and Wachet is the psychic heat. So this is a negative Wachet, meaning no psychic heat. The magnetic field is the omen, and the diamagnet receives the omen but does not act upon it. Rather, it moves away from it. Diamagnetic atoms are lined up perpendicularly to the magnetic field and the field of temperature. So temperature is motion in space, and diamagnetism has diamagnetic atoms have motion in time. So diamagnetism is not affected by temperature, whereas both paramagnetism and ferromagnetism and antiferromagnetism are affected by temperature. So diamagnetism is not affected by temperature because it's aligned east and west. And it corresponds to the electronegative atoms on the periodic table, which are the ones that are over on the side, I guess that would be on the right side of the periodic table. The ones that are, say if you're talking about the second row, the third row on the periodic table, the elements between sodium 11 and I guess what is that, argon 18, and so the electropositives are the beginning of the sequence there: sodium, magnesium, aluminum, and I guess in the middle then you would have silicon, and then phosphorus and sulfur and chlorine would be the electronegatives. So it's that side of the periodic table. So this is called the reluctant magnetism. Reluctance, which is a physics term. It's a unit of physics. Reluctance resists establishment of a magnetic flux by a magnetomotive force. So acting upon the omen is the establishment of a magnetic flux. And so this is not acting upon the omen. The omen doesn't move us. We are repelling or denying the omen. So diamagnetism is a lack of psychic heat. Diamagnetism mostly prevails in compounds and insulators, as opposed to conductors, which are either paramagnetic or ferromagnetic. So the four kinds of magnetism that we're talking about are diamagnet, paramagnetic, ferromagnetic, and antiferromagnetic. Diamagnetism, by comparison, is weak and overpowered by all of the other kinds of magnetism, especially by ferromagnetism. And the reason why is that the diamagnet, as well as the paramagnet, is subject to the electric rotation of an atom in addition to the magnetic rotation of an atom. So whereas a ferromagnet is subject to only the magnetic rotation, so its charge is only distributed over 2 dimensions. A diamagnet, as well as a paramagnet, is subject to also the electric rotation, which means that it's distributed over 3 dimensions instead of 2, which greatly dilutes its charge. But what legacy scientists don't exactly understand is that they think that they don't think that magnetism is really universal, but it is universal in all atoms, but it's just extremely weak in both the paramagnet and and especially the diamagnet. And so any magnetic charge is distributed over 3 dimensions instead of 2. Any diamagnetic charge is distributed over 3 dimensions instead of 2. And so it's much weaker. Any significant amount of motion in time, which is what you get with an electronegative, prevents the establishment of the positive magnetic orientation. So that's what we, as far as humans go, when we want to use this magnetism as an analog for our own behavior, what is preventing the diamagnet from acting upon the omen is any significant amount of motion in time. So that's what we kind of need to be able to avoid in order to turn on our psychic heat, our courage. And so we have to kind of figure out what is that analog. What is the analog in psychological terms, spiritual terms, to the significant amount of motion in time that a diamagnet has? So, what we're trying to do here is we're trying to look at the physics of it and then make analogies to the spiritual aspects of it. And so, that takes some work, some comparison. It's up at the fourth sphere where we're doing, form, function, and interrelationship, and also the fifth sphere, which is all about analogies. The fifth sphere is a lot about analogies, whereas the fourth sphere is analysis, and the fourth sphere is mostly about synthesis. So those two things are come into play when we're trying to make analogies of what can the physical world really tell us about the psychological and spiritual worlds. So anyway, that is basically the end of this short version, and hopefully, to be continued version of this diamagnetism, what avoids omens and synchronicities. Again, don't be discouraged if you don't feel like you got this, if you're not really scientifically inclined. Well, just remember, I'm not either. I'm a liberal arts person, so actually, being a liberal arts person is a big advantage because you don't have to unlearn so much garbage to be able to kind of understand the reciprocal system or the reciprocal system 2, which is where I'm getting most of this information. It's easier to understand it because you can approach it with a beginner's mind. You don't already have all this faulty information in your head that you have to, avoid rationalizing and to actually look at, look at science and say, we pretend like we really know this stuff, but if you really look at the top scientists out there, they are the only ones who will admit that, okay, this is just the best model that we have right now. It's not, it's not set in stone. We're always changing this. So having a beginner's mind puts you a step ahead. So don't be discouraged if you don't really understand this. Just maybe listen to the video a couple times, or wait till I come out with other videos on similar subjects and, go over it over and over, and eventually the pennies will drop and it will click into your head a little bit better. Whereas if you already have the scientific training, you've probably turned off this video a long time ago and you just said, oh, this is nonsense. You actually have a great advantage if you don't have a scientific background, because then you have a certain curiosity, and you also have less garbage in your head that has to be scrutinized and then eventually ejected. Okay, so again, if you'd like the copy of those 144 Fractal Faculties annotated, click the link in the description. You can like the video, share, subscribe, and I also have my Cash App and my Venmo there in the description if you'd like to fund any of this research and the videos, if you feel like you got something out of it. And stay tuned for future videos in this series and other videos on this channel. And otherwise, have a nice, beautiful day.